Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar in review video. This one's going to be episode 8 for The Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance. This is the final video where I'll be discussing one of the books of Avatar on its own. After this, there's just 2 videos to go. First one, episode 9 next week, is going to be for Korra as a series, and then episode 10 to finish out the series is going to be for Avatar versus Korra, the big comparison. But yeah, let's get into Book 4 Balance. The DVD is not actually out yet, so I don't have that to show you guys. It's out on March 10th, so not too long away. I should hopefully be getting that when it does come out. But overall, I'll start off with the rankings. So you know that Book 2 is my favourite book, I've said that. And you know that I probably I think I said I ranked Book 3 as my lowest rank. So you know my 1 and 4, you just don't know if, with regards to Book 4 and Book 1, where I rank them, which one's second, which one's third. While preparing for this video, I came to the conclusion that I gave the second place to Book 4 just a little bit over Book 1. So now you have my full list. So first place is Book 2, second place is Book 4, third place is Book 1, and fourth place is Book 3. Now, I'll get into the specific reasons why I chose Book 4 over Book 1 later on in regards to second place. But the main thing I want to talk about at the start here with regards to Book 4 is just that this is the final book of The Legend of Korra. And that brings with it a couple of things that are standard to nearly every final season of a show. One, it's the season that's going to be responsible for ending the series. And that's a really tough task for anything, no matter what the series is. And oftentimes, a lot of series don't get it quite right. Avatar: The Last Airbender did get it right. And I think Book 4 Balance also got it right. This was a very successful ending to the book. Because there was so much hype built up around this, because people were not ready to let this series go. And given how the fandom has been critical at a decent amount of times about the show, you could be definitely worried about this show in regards to how it would end. And the fact that I didn't really see much criticism tells a lot about that. In that this season did end it out very well, because Korra's character arc felt like the last part of a character arc. The 3-year time skip made it feel like this was a big story. The way it ended and stuff like that also just was very satisfying. Nearly everyone getting the kind of last few moments they needed. Now, what also comes with that, with a final season, is also the fact that any little thing that's set up that isn't resolved is almost kind of blamed on the final season. And in this case, it's probably very true, because this book did have a lot going on, like Book 3, and stuff specifically set up for Book 4, and they didn't quite resolve it effectively. Let me give you a couple of examples. The first one, and for me one of the most egregious ones, is Jinora. She really wasn't involved at all in this book. And after having such a big involvement in Book 2 and 3, this was the book where we were finally going to get to see Jinora as a master airbender with her tattoos. She's had them for 3 years now. She's going to be really impressive. She's probably going to be on Team Avatar, like with the rest of them, when it eventually comes down to it. Unfortunately, this is arguably the book where she was in it the least. She had probably one or two big moments. The biggest moment for me was her and Opal saving Korra from the first battle with Kuvira, with the tornado that the two of them made together. But still, Jinora didn't really have many good individual moments this book. And I felt that they were setting up something, that we were going to get a scene between Kai and Jinora to show off that relationship, which Kai said in the first episode was a good relationship, even though it was long distance for a lot of the time. And so when the two of them actually came together towards the end of the book, I was expecting a scene to show what their relationship is like, but we didn't get that at all. And so that was very disappointing for me. Jinora was a character who, in my opinion, had the best development in Book 3, one of the more impressive characters in Book 2 and 3, and for her just to kind of drop down the pecking order again was very disappointing. Another thing that I felt was kind of rushed, kind of not resolved the best, was Bataar Jr. He had this whole thing set up in the background of Book 4 with his father. He felt like he was in his father's shadow. no one was respecting him for his genius because Varric was a better genius than him. His father was better than him, and then he's the one who builds the Colossus and gets some respect. You had the setup of his fiancee being Kuvira and that relationship, and then when it came down to it, Kuvira fired the laser at Bataar Jr. That relationship ended, and he joined the good guy side. There was no emotional resolution for Bataar and his father, which I think that was kind of one thing that was very needed. Almost that scene between Sue and Bataar when he's kind of recovering needed to be between Bataar and Bataar Jr. So I felt like there's something big set up there that they just didn't quite get onto. Now, if they do comics, this is something they definitely could touch on again, like just you could over to the Beifongs and they were visiting Bataar in prison or something like that. And he's trying to repair those bonds that he broke with the whole Kuvira plot from this book. And there's a bunch of other kind of little things throughout the season that I felt like could have been resolved. Like they brought in Baraz and Anna, the kind of the prison camp escapees, for that one episode, and I think we saw them in Remembrances as well. And I felt like they were setting them up to like arrive on the battlefield in like numbers to like really help in the final battle, but they ended up just being there to just inform us about what these kind of re-education camps were about, and they didn't really make much of a difference in the book. So I felt like they could have done something more with that. And then there's just a bunch of other kind of little things that, like, a lot of the more minor plots in the book felt like they were just put to the wayside towards the end, because they just didn't have enough time. So yeah, I suppose I'll get most of my criticisms out of the way so I can focus on being more positive towards the end of the video. Probably one of the biggest criticisms for this book, and it's going to be a kind of mark against the book forever just when you look at an episode list, and that is Remembrances. Now, this episode, unfortunately, it's the worst episode of Avatar we've got. People say it's the Great Divide and stuff like that. For me, I'd probably say Nightmares and Daydreams is the worst episode of Avatar. But this is just, I think it's indefensible. This is the worst episode. Now, there are reasons for why this episode is the way it is. Nick cut the budget by basically the price of one episode, and so as not to basically just have this be complete filler, they tried to do something unique with it. There's about 5 minutes of new animation in it, but most of it's clips. There's a big negative against the episode because it is a clip show, it is a recap episode. 2, what they try and do with the recap episode in terms of the characters reflecting on their past doesn't work. You have Mako primarily reflecting on the whole romantic incident, and it's just further, kind of messing with his character, like, oh, Mako, how are you doing all of this, and stuff like that. It's really, once again, they're sacrificing his character because they made a mistake in the writing with the romance, and he's the one who gets the blame for it all. And then they try and make it out like that Mako learned from Korra to be selfless or something like that, when in reality, back in book 1, it was kind of the other way around. Almost like that Mako put himself on the line for Korra against Amon, and then she returned the favor later on and unlocked her airbending. And that was part of the reason she unlocked her airbending, and that she kind of put someone else before herself. So I'm not sure what they're trying to do there. The Korra section of the episode was the most forgettable section, which was, for Korra, who had such an amazing character arc this book, was a big negative. Like, they could have done something interesting just with the few lines of dialogue, new dialogue they had, and the few bits of new animation they had, but they really didn't do anything. They had just Korra doubting herself as the Avatar, and then Asami's just like, hey, look at all this great stuff you did in the previous books, and she's just like, okay, I'm good. And then the Varric part of the story, it's probably the most memorable part of the story, but it's all for humor reasons. They didn't really try and do anything with Bolin with regards to like making him out to be interesting or really touching on his arc massively. But definitely there's some memorable funny moments, like the villain phone call between, like Unalaq and Zombie Amon and stuff like that. That was really cool, but for the most part this episode it's just there's not much to this episode, and what they try and do with the episode just doesn't work. So that's a big mark against the episode book, and that, like, you say, like, how many episodes does book 4 have? You like have 13 with like an asterisk and just like a note down the bottom saying, well, actually 12 plus a recap episode. And so, you know, you're left. What basically happens is that what the idea that I get is that this book had a plot of 13 episodes that now had to be kind of crammed into 12 episodes. And I really just think about, if Nick hadn't cut the budget, what those 22 minutes could have been used for if it was all new animation. Like, I assume it would have changed the way things happened after that, in that, you know, you would have had basically the episode after Remembrances kind of take place during Remembrances, but you could kind of stretch everything out. You have a little bit more time to do more stuff in each episode, and you just kind of use that time effectively over the basic story that was told in the remaining episodes. Again, like, I feel like this filler episode happening meant that, you know, the likes of Jinora and Kai relationship moments got cut out. A final moment for Bolin and Opal's relationship got cut out. Jinora just really doing anything in the book kind of got cut out because of that. Vitar Jr.'s character arc got cut out just because of this episode happening. I think it is a really big flaw with the series that there is this one episode that is just such a level below all of the other episodes in the series. And like book 3 with my complaint about the villains, this is a big issue, I think, with book 4, that this episode happened to be in there. It's not Michael Brown's fault by any means. It's Nick's fault, but it ends up being a big negative with this book, in my opinion. What next? I think Kuvira is going to be a character who appears in both the positives and negatives of the book, but definitely more on the positive, and I'll talk about that later on. But in terms of the negative parts of Kuvira, I think the only issue with Kuvira is that, like all of the villains in Korra, they could all have used a bit more character development, a bit more backstory. Now, Kuvira, I think after the Red Lotus, Kuvira is like second on my list of character villains who need more backstory focus. Because as much as she's probably one of the villains who in terms of her base character as we meet her in the series is the most interesting in terms of what she's doing, she's also probably one of the weaker ones in terms of the explanation that we get for why she's doing this, why she is the way she is. And the reason I say that is because the only backstory reveal of what happened to her we get is a little tiny bit of backstory we get of just Kuvira reacting at the kind of meeting between world leaders where they ask Sue to go in and stabilize the Bossing Say, and then Kuvira speaks up, and she treats that as a kind of just complete mistake from Sue, and so turns against her eventually. I think the problem here is just that they didn't show enough. Like, that moment in itself, yes, it was the kind of key moment for Kuvira, but I wanted to see her thought process as she she reacted after this meeting to just like, okay, she denied my request, she's going against what I believe in, and her just deciding, wait, I can actually do this on my own, and so she starts up a relationship with Vitar Jr., or was she in a relationship with him before this? And the two of them start dating. She eventually starts planting these seeds in Vitar's mind, and maybe get a full reveal about if she actually cared about Vitar at some stage, or if she literally was using him because he was the most intelligent of that family, and she wanted to basically hurt Sue by taking a member of her family away from her. And then, I think most importantly of all, just, you know, really show why she wanted to create this Earth Empire. She explains it to Korra in dialogue, but again, it's another case of I wanted them to show me these moments in Kuvira's life, not just tell me about them. Show me a flashback of a young Kuvira very soon after being abandoned by her parents and her reaction to that. show me the first days of her being raised in the Beifong household as basically another daughter for Sue, and show that relationship develop over time and stuff like that. That's what I really wanted to see from Kuvira. What we get is fine. Like all of the villains, I think, except Book 3. What we get in the series is fine for what they're going for, but imagine what it could have been if they really explored all these little details of the character's backstory. I think Kuvira would be right up there if we knew that little bit more about her and had her motives explained a little bit more, because I still struggle a little bit with just the explanation of, like, I wanted to, protect my people so they would never feel abandoned and go through what I went through. And so that's why I'm stabilizing this Earth Kingdom and stuff like that. But for me, it doesn't quite explain why she went through the crazy stuff that she did. Where the villainous side of this came into play. Where the taking everyone not of Earth Kingdom origin out of the Earth Kingdom and basically putting them in these re-education camps as slaves, where that came from. Where the really heavy, dictator part of her came from. The villainous side of her, to where she would actually build this Colossus and attack Republic City to take it back. I just need a little bit more explanation. And it, as I said, all of the villains in Korra lack something a little bit, but the Red Lotus are up there just because we know very little about them, and I think Kuvira's in second place just because her explanation is the least kind of, I suppose, explored of the rest of them. But as I said, overall, the how good of a character Kuvira is, how well the voice acting for her was done, helps her to not really be brought down like the Book 3 villains, in my opinion. So there's that. Now I suppose I get into some of the positives now. Maybe I'll remember some of the more negatives that I have about it as we go on. But in terms of positives, I think the time skip was a great idea, because one, it helps the series get away from this idea that sometimes happens in shows like this, where it's just kind of getting unbelievable. Like, are you seriously asking me to believe that in the space of like a year, Korra encounters, 4 separate villains who all have these kind of crazy plans that will change the world on a kind of world stage? Like, that gets pretty unbelievable. Now, with Amon, like, Korra at least does a good job at this. After Book 1, there's a 6-month time skip before Unalaq comes into play. There's only a couple of weeks time skip after that, where Zahir comes into play. But that works because of the events at the end of Book 2. It sets up Zahir escaping because he was a non-bender beforehand. But then after that, it's kind of like, okay, they've kind of taken out the Red Lotus now. You need a break. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for just this to immediately happen. So a 3-year time skip works because, one, it allows Kuvira to be in a position where she's basically got nearly full control of the Earth Empire. It allows Korra to be away from the world long enough for them to believe that Korra is almost never going to come back to the role. And it presents so much opportunities for these amazing reunion moments that we get, of just Korra returning to her role, meeting all her friends again, and those reactions. And in addition to that, all of the new character designs for the characters now 3 years older are great to see. Getting reintroduced to our characters 3 years on was a really cool moment, just getting to see their kind of new designs, their new outfits, and just see how much more mature they've gotten in those 3 years. So I think that was a really kind of nice move that they went with, bringing those characters up in age to where they're, I think, much closer to, I think, the majority of the audience's ages. Because I think in book 1, 2, and 3, when they were like, Korra was like 17 going on 18, she was still a little bit younger than what I would say is the majority of the Korra viewing audience. But this with the 3 year time skip, it really helps you to kind of really understand Korra now that she's basically a young adult and stuff like that. So I think that was a really successful move on multiple accounts. Next up, I think the biggest positive with this book, far and away, is Korra's character arc in this book. After book 2, this far and away is the second best character arc in the entire show of Korra. This journey to one in like Korra alone, where you see her go from basically the aftermath of book 3. She's in the wheelchair. She doesn't know really what's up. She's just recently getting healed from her injuries, to really seeing how long it takes for her to really get back on her feet physically. And it's such an emotional journey for this character who we've seen is so physical, so fiery, so kind of intense, to just be in this position where she needs so much help from the other people. And so when she finally begins to walk again, she finally gets that advice from Katara. It's so emotional when she does finally walk again, but at the same time, again, it's kind of Korra's kind of issue throughout all of the books. She's really good at the physical side of everything, but it's always a struggle for her with the more mental, kind of spiritual side of things. And once again, that kind of comes into play here, when she kind of almost forgets about the mental side of things, and so is kind of haunted by the visions of the past, haunted by the battles with her former enemies, and eventually just decides that she isn't going to return to being the Avatar until she can be the Avatar that the world actually needs. And Korra alone, I think, is the best episode in book 4. And it's definitely up there as one of my favourite episodes of Avatar overall. It's such an amazing character journey for Korra. As you see, again, there's that physical recovery, plus her actually leaving and saying, okay, I'm going back to Republic City, but actually, in fact, going on this journey of her own to try and fix herself. And you see how she's kind of lost her spiritual connection to Rava and stuff like that, and how she eventually just kind of loses hope in herself a little bit and just has to kind of hide herself as the Avatar, because for her, people seeing her as the Avatar but seeing her as a weak Avatar is one of the worst things that can be seen, and that's very clear when immediately after that kind of embarrassing moment where just some random vendors, they're not very powerful, just steal from this shop, and she can't do anything about it. She's not powerful enough to beat them. And so she decides to kind of go undercover and is doing all of these kind of tasks to get her strength back, but it's just not working. It's a really great journey, and then as you go into the other episodes, it was such a unique idea, I think, to have Toph this time be the mentor figure. Not Aang, not Katara, just Toph. And it kind of fits because Toph, of all of the Avatar The Last Airbender characters, probably has the personality closest to Korra's in terms of this really tough character who initially you wouldn't think is a very spiritual character, but Toph herself has gone through a period of her life where she's decided to become more spiritual and is now a very spiritual person. And so her helping Korra through all these issues is amazing, because you see her pointing out all of the really truthful things to Korra, that you are holding on to your past enemies when those battles are over. You've already dealt with them. And then I think most importantly, and I think one of the most amazing things that this book actually did, point out to Korra that you can learn something from all of the villains that you fought, in that as much as they were villains and they took their ideals too far, the base level of their ideals, before they took them to extremes, is something you can really learn from. And how she just pointed them all out, that equality was something that Republic City actually needed. Amon just went about it in a bad way. The world needed to be more spiritual. Again, Unalaq just went about it in the wrong way. Instead of just promoting spirituality, he tried to force spirituality onto the entire world by basically destroying humans. And book 3, the Red Lows wanted freedom, but they wanted freedom in the form of chaos by actually physically killing all of the world leaders. And it promotes this idea in Korra's head that she has to learn and understand Kuvira before she can properly defeat her. And it's something that she deals with throughout the whole book. And Uh, you see these various stages in her recovery where she gets the rest of the metal out of herself, but she's still not kind of ready yet because she's still afraid of Zahir, and then she, in an amazing scene, actually goes to see Zahir. This is one of the big things I actually appreciate Book 3 for doing, in that they didn't kill Zahir. They killed the rest of the Red Lotus, and I still have complaints about them killing them without developing their characters. But the fact that they have Zahir still alive set up this scene perfectly, and Korra and Zahir's scene here is amazing because they are hero and villain, but because of the situation at hand, they both have to work together to take out Kuvira, because what Kuvira is doing is something that even Zahir doesn't want. And again, like I said about Book 3, I like the interactions between Korra and Zahir, because Zahir was the type of villain the hero could actually talk to without it just ending in nothing. That those two can actually talk, and I liked how Zahir kind of guided Korra through the process, that, you know, like, your power is endless, like, the poison should have killed you. The fact that it didn't shows how powerful you actually are, that you didn't die in this moment. And I love the fact that all that was needed in terms of Korra's final moment of healing was for her just to watch the full kind of vision of what actually happened that day, and see that, yes, she was nearly killed, but don't focus on the fact that you're nearly killed. Focus more on the fact that you survived that, and how through this, you know, suffering, she really gained an understanding for people that, you know, I'm not going to say she had no understanding for others before, that's maybe a bit harsh, and maybe they could have worded some of this stuff towards the end in that way, but just the idea that Korra gained an extra understanding for people through her experiences in this book. It's kind of hard to phrase it in a way where it's not kind of like, it was good that Korra nearly died, like, that's not the case. It's just that Korra, having recently gone through something like this, can better connect with Kuvira, and so end that situation effectively. So I really like Korra's arc in this book. Next positive, Kuvira herself. I really did like Kuvira as a villain in this book. Our first kind of female villain, apart from Minghua, who was kind of just one of a group. Our first main female villain in Korra. And, you know, for a show that has done so much for, I suppose, you know, women in animation and stuff like that, with Korra being the main character and being such a strong female character, for the final season to also have Kuvira involved as the main villain was just a really cool moment to see. And she was a really powerful character with her amazing metal bending and earth bending, so controlled. She felt a little bit like Azula, but definitely with more of a focus on just her goals, and, you know, less, you're kind of less worried about Kuvira's mental state than you are about Azula's. But it was that type of villain, the kind of Kuvira Azula villain, was definitely good to have this book. And what I really liked is just that they did have her where she was the villain who kind of had the most developed plan, in the sense of she had a whole army of herself. She basically owned most of the world, with the Earth Kingdom being the biggest nation in the world, and her having basically all control of that. And just the way these two characters interacted was very interesting, because the whole book they were hinting towards the fact that Korra and Kuvira are very alike, and you were kind of wondering, like, okay, I get some of those points, but, like, what are you exactly going for here? But it actually worked out so well, because during their first battle, you obviously have the moment where Korra's in the Avatar state, she's about to defeat Kuvira, but ultimately what happens is that Kuvira turns around and Korra sees herself in Kuvira. Because when it comes down to it, you know, Kuvira, the reason why she did what she did was because she stepped into a role that no one else was going to step into. The Earth Kingdom needed to be stabilized, and Kuvira stepped in. She had good intentions at the start, and it changed over time. The power got the better of her, but fundamentally, her stabilizing the Earth Kingdom was something that needed to happen, and she did it as well because Korra was out of action, and Korra realizes that, you know, that's the sort of decision that Korra would have made if she was active at that time. Like, if Korra didn't need to heal after book 3, she would probably be to some extent involved in that meeting with Sue, Tenzin, and Ko. And I really wonder what she would have said. Would she have said, like, wanted Sue to step in like Kuvira? Or what? And I kind of like that, just that comparison that you get there between the two of them. And then ultimately, at the end, you get the kind of final scene between the two of them where, you know, Korra saves Kuvira's life. After all Kuvira's put her and the world through, Korra steps in front of that spirit blast, shows Kuvira that she will never be as powerful as the Avatar, which is a big thing for Kuvira, and she's all about power. And then you get that conversation between the two of them in the spirit world, where, you know, Kuvira reveals kind of why she did what she did, and ultimately surrenders after that. It was a really strong moment, I think. If I had any negative about the whole Korra Kuvira conflict, it's perhaps that the final battle, I think, could have been a little bit longer. I liked what we got, the kind of closed, contained fight in the kind of control room of the Colossus, but I wanted that fight to be longer. I get that what they were more going for is more of a, like, okay, little fight here, and then after that the fight is going to be more plot focus, and that Kuvira escapes into the wilderness. She finds the cannon, Korra follows her in, nearly gets hit with the cannon goes out of control, and it's you're having a more plot focused fight rather than an actual one-on-one battle here. But I still wanted the fight to be a bit longer, and so that's why I don't rate that fight as highly as some of the other ones. To the point where I would say that the best fight that we get in this book is just basically most of the main cast against the Colossus in episode 12. I love that fight because you really get to see a bunch of human characters come up with various plans to take out this giant robot. And you get to see some awesome, really big bending moves, like Korra freezing it, Bolin, Lin, and Sue knocking a building down on it, all of the airbenders attacking it, and just how powerful the Colossus is. It's a really cool fight. I think it's brilliant. So that's a huge positive, I think, with the season. What else is there? Bolin, I felt, had a pretty good arc this book as well. They gave him something important with the fact that he joined up with Kuvira because all he was learning about was the positive side of what Kuvira was doing, and he wasn't being told about any of the negative sides of it. And eventually, you know, he realizes what's up, leaves, but before that had happened, he'd burned the bridges with a lot of the other characters like Mako and Opal. And so he and Varric and Julie escape, and you have that whole plot, and, you know, definitely maybe they went overboard with the amount of time they gave to Varric as a character in this book compared to his overall role in the series. They went maybe a little bit overboard with him here. But it was a really cool dynamic seeing those two escape Kuvira and ultimately have some of the key information for ending the battle with kind of Kuvira towards the end, the Colossus. Yeah, what else did I talk about? I suppose so Bolin's arc was actually pretty interesting here, and eventually, like, especially in that episode with like Toph, Operation Beifong, where he's trying to prove himself to Opal again, and he does that by putting himself on the line to save Zhu Li when no one else would, and that kind of shows to her that he was willing to put himself on the line for other people and do that. Varric and Zhu Li's relationship was definitely the best romance of the book. It starts in this book and gets good resolution in this book with the proposal and the wedding. I just really like that Zhu Li really became a character in this book. Like, she hadn't really spoken at all for the first 3 books, and here she speaks a lot more. She really becomes a character of her own. She wants respect from Varric, and eventually, you know, she gets it. All the while, she has this other plot where she apparently betrays Varric, but it's to go undercover and stop Kuvira herself. And then there's the wedding, the proposal. There's some really strong moments here. I liked that Asami's arc got a good resolution with her father Hiroshi. That was an emotional reunion, and then the death of Hiroshi, definitely one of the strongest moments in the finale. Mako got a big moment at the finale, which I really appreciated. Again, he wasn't up to much this book, primarily being stuck with Prince Wu, but I really thought that moment that they gave him, the kind of sacrifice moment, was really great. Like that's like top 3 moments from the entire series probably. So I really like that. And then Prince Wu himself, like, for a minor character who I was a bit worried about early on, I thought by the end of the series he had a very solid minor character arc, going from the kind of spoiled prince to learning what his people mean to him, gaining in maturity, showing that he is actually a pretty decent leader, and in the finale getting that moment where he protects the people. And then by the end of the series, his decision to not become the next Earth King, but rather basically step down from that post and promote, each kind of region electing their own leader, adds to. It was a big moment to get over that Kuvira was somewhat correct. I suppose Zahir and Kuvira to some extent were both correct. We don't need an Earth Queen anymore, or Earth King, Earth Queen anymore. We also don't need chaos. We also don't need an empire. We just need the people to elect the people that they want in charge. And so I thought that was a really strong conclusion to his arc, that he just steps down from his post himself, and he really gained in knowledge over the course of the whole book himself. So I like that. One of the last things I'm supposed to mention is Korra Sami. Now, you guys probably know my thoughts on Korra Sami. Basically, I ship Korra Sami right now. I really like that they made the decision to go with the two of them as a couple at the end. And I'm really eager to see more. I hope comics address it. I hope there's more stories that come out for it. I don't think it was written perfectly in the book, in the whole series even. In the sense that I felt it was a little bit weak just with regards to the setup for this relationship. Because for me, the only 100% this is a romantic moment, we are hinting at Korra Sami happening here moment, was the blush from the reunion. And I really liked that scene, and we discussed it. Everyone discussed that scene, rightfully so. There weren't enough moments like that between these two to set up to the point where going into the finale, Korra Sami was on your minds that this is what they're going to do. I think going into the finale, I think a lot of people just felt like they were going to not have Korra be in a relationship, and that's the thing that they go for. So, everyone, including me, was pleasantly surprised when they actually went with Korra Sami, but at the same time, because it didn't have the setup that it maybe could have had, maybe should have had, it didn't quite have the impact that on me that it had on other people. I still think it was a really strong moment, but this is the final scene in the entire series, and you're giving it to this relationship which is just starting now, which has very little setup behind it. It's cool that you did that, and it really gets over how strong of a moment it is, and how strongly Mike and Brian believe in promoting same-sex relationships and stuff like that. But it still is a case of just this scene, these scenes at the end will be so much more emotional if they had gone for it earlier on. And, it's Nickelodeon, but they won't allow them to do a lot of other stuff, we assume. And that them getting away with the blush, being allowed to do the double handhold at the end, was probably the extent they could have done. But I wanted more scenes between Korra and Asami where it was to at least some extent obvious that they were hinting at a relationship between them in a romantic sense. I think too many scenes that people say are set up for Korra Sami are just scenes between them, that it's just Korra and Asami happen to be in this scene together, or just showing their friendship. I think there are very few scenes that really heavily hint towards their romantic relationship. But as I said, I like the ship. I'm glad that they went with it. I think the blush and the strength of the scenes between the two of them at the wedding at the end and the final scene are enough to make me just like, okay, I'm happy with that. You know, the romance throughout Korra with the main characters has been a bit of a mess, but you've ended it on a pretty high note here, and I suppose I'm happy with the series for doing that. So yeah, what else is there to talk about? Yeah, I suppose Toph herself a little bit. Maybe I really like that she got a big role in the series, like probably the biggest of all of the older cast being involved again. I like that she was Korra's mentor. I like that she also had a kind of character arc of her own, like when she said to Korra in one of the earlier episodes of the book that, you know, like you know, that there's no point in even trying because, you know, there'll always be a new villain that comes up, so why even bother? Because, you know, when I was Republic City Chief, you know, it's just the names of the criminals that changed. The street always stayed the same. There was always something wrong. And how eventually at the end she learns to kind of, I suppose, stand up and, you know, do something to help people when she comes in at the end, saves her family, even when her family went to save other people and kind of take a Kavira more focus on the world. And then also attempting to heal the relationship with Lynn was really good. I like that she just went, you know, like, I know I haven't been the best mother to you, but I'm just proud that despite that, you turned out the way you did, and I'm proud of you. I thought that was a good resolution to what it was. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to end it there. I don't want to go on too much longer. I'll talk more about Korra as a series next week and Avatar vs. Korra going on. But overall, I like Book 4 Balance. I really do. I think it's a really solid book, a really great conclusion to an amazing series overall. It has its problems like all of the books do. And I think ultimately it's kind of just a little bit let down by the fact that it has remembrances, and because of that it's missing an episode, and because of that it's one of the books that suffers the most from the number of episodes and too much going on, not enough time to resolve everything, which is a common problem with nearly every book of Korra. But I'll talk about that more next week. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on Book 4, my opinions on stuff. Do you disagree with me, agree with me, or what? But other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.